Welcome to the Unreligious Podcast, where we spread the love of Jesus without judgment or bylaws, focusing solely on Christ and the Bible. What are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm just chilling. What are you doing?
I am being very, very thankful and grateful that my feet are on American soil again.
I can, yeah. I mean, I know what that feels like every day, but I can't imagine what it's like to not have that and then have it again.
Dude, it's amazing how much you take for granted because it's the small things, you know what I mean? Like over there, their bacon is really weird. It's almost like ham. It's like really, I mean, really thin slice, like paper thin ham. That's what they consider bacon. So I jumped up this morning. We went shopping, and I jumped up this morning and I looked at my wife. I said, "We're gonna have bacon and eggs, real bacon,
Mm.
real bacon, bacon and eggs and sourdough bread." Oh,
It was funny. You said something about your wife, but like I was just sitting there thinking, like earlier, I was like, both of us really kind of outkicked our coverage a little bit when it comes to our ladies. Like, I don't know how that happened, but like just a couple regular Joes, such as me and yourself, we really did all right for ourselves. you know.
we actually did. We didn't do too bad, not at all. So
Well, it's actually been 2 weeks since we've recorded because of just with you moving and all that stuff. So we'll look, behind the peripheral curtain just a touch, But yeah, there's so much to cover. I don't know that we're gonna catch all of it in the "How was your week" segment, but how was just I guess the move and everything? Like, I mean, if you had to sum it up.
dude, you know, I can say that it was flawless, and I chalk that up to prayers. I know that Audrey and I were praying our hearts out. I know you were praying for us. We had a lot of people sending prayers, and it went pretty flawless. We had one hiccup at the airport in on the island, and we had this big wooden crate that we have all of our nice pictures in, like a Remington and all kinds of stuff. Well, they started to give us a hard time about the dog, about our dog Roxy. I told you we had to get her underweight. They started to give us a hard time about her because they're like, "Oh no, it has to be a combined weight of the kennel and the dog, not just the dog." And I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute." So we got that straightened out, and then the crate was too heavy, and they said we can't even put that on the plane. You're gonna have to ship that, cargo. So it was really
Mm.
cool because I called my buddy Mike, who lives on the island, and he had helped drop us off. He turned right back around and came and picked that crate up, and he's got it at his house on the island until we can afford to ship it over here. But that was really cool. That was only hiccup, dude. When we landed in Lisbon, Portugal, on the mainland, it was coming down in sheets, and the whole tail of the airplane was like whiplashing back and forth as we were landing. And
Yeah,
so,
we covered that. I think in previous one. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that.
dude, no. And then we were sitting there in the airport, and my wife and I are just literally watching the rain just come down in sheets against the windows, and the wind was whipping, and I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be a rough flight out of here." Um, so we
Yeah.
start. I literally, dude, I put my hands together, I put my head down, I started praying right there at the gate, and I kid you not, dude, 5 minutes before we started to board the plane, the skies parted, blue sky came out, the wind died down, and a big rainbow right over the airport. I was like, "Thank you, God, man." It's just amazing, dude. Amazing.
No Dramamine needed.
No, and then we got on the plane, and it was one of them jumbo planes that has the 4 seats in the center and then 2 seats on each side, and the plane was only half full. So it was like everybody got up and started taking all the 4-seaters down the center and laying down and sleeping because, I mean, it was a 10-hour flight.
Yeah, I mean, my God moment. Oh, I had a few, but so Snack Man struck again. Which those of you, if you're new to the podcast, there's a guy that I work with. I call him Snack Man because literally he always leaves me snacks at like the time I need them the absolute most. But it was funny, you know, this past weekend, yet again, we're looking at our finances and, we're like trying to get groceries and stuff. We go to the grocery store and we came back and I forgot, it was like a Saturday or something. I think it was Saturday. And I was like wanting a snack and I seen that we had salsa. So I was like, okay, well, and so I asked my wife as I was like reaching up into the pantry, looking around, I said, hey, do we have any tortilla chips? And she's like, no, we didn't get any tortilla chips. I was like, oh, dang it, And I was like, well, it is what it is, I guess. Well, I forgot what day it was. It was like Wednesday or Thursday. Snack man. I go to, I walk in over there at the specific place that me and him work together at, because there's different locations and, I travel around a bit. But, and I see the box sitting there. I'm like, snacks. Well, dude, I look down there. I'm not even joking you, Chris. There
Nuh-uh.
was like 6 bags of tortilla chips. And it was like half of them were and they're both Tostitos. So, I mean, we're talking like name brand, top of the line tortillas, but half of so 3 of them was the tortilla scoops, which are like primo, me and my wife both love. And then the other half was the hint of lime, which we both love. And so I was telling my wife, and this gets better, but so I was telling my wife, I was like, well, baby snack man hit us again. And she's like, really? What did he get? And I said, well, do you remember what we said Saturday, or what I said Saturday I wish we had? And she's like, I don't remember. I said tortilla chips. And she's like, no. I was like, yep, 6 bags of tortilla chips. And our little catchphrase now is just God will provide here lately. I'm just like, God will provide. Well, so then I just mentioned in passing, I said, "Yeah, there's like 2 bags of Doritos in there too." And she's like, "Well, what kind?" And I said, and I looked at the bag and I said, they're sweet chili lime or sweet chili, what's it called? I think it's like sweet chili something, or I don't remember. I think it's like a purple bag. I think it's sweet
Mhm.
chili something." But she's like, "Oh my gosh, those are my favorite." And I was like, "Well, there's just the icing on the cake, I guess." So um, and again, I think that, like I said, sometimes God does stuff in a way that's like, you know, literally only he can get credit. Because I mean, it was like 4 or 5 days after, and I don't communicate. It's not like I didn't tell anybody that I work with. I didn't, there's no way for him to know that, I was wanting tortilla chips. And so literally this past weekend, every now and then I get like a wild hair where I basically want nachos for dinner, like every night. And I was like, well, I could go for some nachos and we got plenty of tortilla chips. So, you know, so he literally basically bought essentially the basis of my dinner for the week. So, that was awesome. So that was a little small God moment.
Dude,
Uh,
that is awesome.
um, Another thing is, so I think I talked about it on the podcast, but a buddy of mine that, I think I told you, but I recommended the 2 Bibles. He ended up picking them up. I was like, oh, dude, that's awesome. Well, he was telling me he tried them both out, loved them both. That went really well. So I was really happy about that or whatever, because he's like, dude, I love this study Bible, which the one that I use is for my study Bible. It's this one. You guys will see me grab it sometimes if you watch the video, but it's just the CSB study Bible. But I like it because it's got all the maps and the pictures and notes and stuff or whatever. But so that was pretty cool. And then we had what I'm calling a poop fiasco on Sunday. It was kind of funny. Funny in a not really funny way, but woke up that morning, my dog had like pooped through his cage, which I was like, bro, what? Because he like never does that. And then Ivy, my wife, is fully ready to go. She's holding our well, I say newborn, she's like 7 months now, but she's holding our daughter on her leg when she goes to pick her up, and she had like pooped through her onesie onto my wife's outfit. So I'm like, oh, dude. And of course, we're getting ready for church. It's always when you're getting ready for church when you have like the most spiritual warfare, I guess. But so she goes and changes. We're like, okay, whatever. Well, then we change my daughter. We go to church. I'm like in Sunday school. I'm sitting her on the table, just kind of playing with her. Church is about to start. Well, then she poops through that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, bro!" So then we change her, And then we change her at church, and my wife's like, dude, this is her last outfit she's got. Well, after church, we throw her in the car seat. We drove to meet my dad and stepmom for pizza. Well, she goes to get her out. She pooped through that. So I was like, we we switched her from like this kind of bougie baby food to like a cheaper alternative. And I was telling my wife, I was like, whatever money we think we're saving, we're spending in diapers. So we got to do better than that.
I was
But
gonna ask you, dude, what are you feeding that kid?
yeah, well, that's the only thing we could come up with. Now the dog, I don't know. I think we switched his food too though, but I told my wife, I was like, man, we gotta get better than that. But yeah, oh, so another thing too I want to talk about. This is off topic from anger, but we had our missions conference along the way there where where you got, we had that little 2 week hiatus there. We had our missions conference, and dude, it was so like, so we had a bunch of missionaries come in, and they come into our Sunday school and they talked and just basically said, hey, this is kind of what we got going on, whatever. Um, but one of the things, so I know that you guys had planned on being missionaries while you guys were in Portugal. That's why I wanted to bring it up. Um, but one of the things that they said was like, they're like, everybody always wants to know how they can get involved in missions, and they're like, you don't always have to go and be a missionary, you don't always have to donate that. But they were like, dude, honestly, just like emails, human contact, letters, whatever, because they're like, we're so alone and isolated, and we're in a place that we're not, that's not like our quote unquote home and whatever. And I know that you guys were kind of stuck on the island. I was kind of curious, because you were in the process of trying to be a missionary, and then it sort of like, it things changed, you ended up coming back or whatever. But they were just like, dude, you don't even have to donate, like just like human interaction is nice. Like we're so isolated and alone. And I didn't know if maybe you wanted to share just kind of like what it was like being in a foreign country, a foreign land, trying to do God's work or whatever. Because I didn't know if you wanted to just share some of your thoughts on it, but
Yeah, yeah. We when we got over there, um we had that big beautiful house and it was perfect for entertaining, and we had these visions of holding church at our house. We had a swimming pool out back on the back deck before I tore that thing apart because it was rotted and we didn't know it. But we envisioned like doing baptisms in the pool out back, you know what I mean? And we had all these grand ideas. And when we got over there, we were told when we were looking at property and houses, oh yeah, yeah, everybody on the island speaks English. Everybody on the island speaks. I'm like, okay, well, cool. It shouldn't be that hard to, testimony to people. We get over there and we start living there, and we realize, no, very few people speak fluent English over there. And so we were trying to learn the language, but what happened to us, Drew, was there's so much culture shock. When it comes to the food, like I think I told you before when we were talking off air that you buy a couple pounds of hamburger over there, and because it's all organic, it's not no preservatives, no hormones, nothing like that. Like literally, it spoils in 2 days if you don't freeze it. And then when you take it out of the freezer, you better cook it that night or the next morning because it'll spoil quick. And some of the food just didn't sit right with us, and then the nerves of everything. I don't know if it was the move or what, but when we got over there, the first month was okay, but then it just went downhill from there. And not knowing the language, my wife was sick and actually went to the hospital a couple of times. I went to the hospital once. It's socialistic healthcare. Dude, there was just so much to it that we felt like the only way we were going to actually physically get better was to come home because we just kept getting sick and sick and sick and it didn't stop.
yeah.
And so trying to adjust to their food over there, trying to adjust to their customs, I will say that I believe we reached a few people, just a handful, you know what I mean? Nothing like our grandiose dreams that we had, but we did reach a few people. I know that for a fact. As a matter of fact, there's two of them that are native islanders that listen to this podcast. and I don't know how they.
Hello.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how Dulce and yeah, I don't know how they actually listen to it because they don't really understand English that well. But Sonia and Dulce are two ladies who have told me that they love the podcast.
they
So
probably they probably understand you way more than they do me. I feel like with my accent. But yeah, no, I thought, what they said really resonated with me because I mean, I was thinking about you and your lady, and it was just like, man, they talked about the isolation, and they're like, you don't have to necessarily donate money or like come on a mission trip, like just emails, like letters. They
yeah,
talked about like care packages, like you know peanut butter with chemicals that RFK wouldn't approve of, or just
right.
whatever they could see. They were just talking about the isolate, and I just was like,
Dude, the
man,
isolation was our house was a fortress. I mean, it really was. It had big, huge iron gates in the front, solid where you can't see through them. Iron gates. The front gate next to that was solid. You couldn't see through that. The carport, was all walls. Inside the living room, the only thing we had to look at in the living room was the carport. No windows anywhere.
mhm,
And along all down the back fence, those spikes on top of the fence all the way around. Like, I mean, we were fortified,
yeah,
and the seclusion, Drew, was terrible because Audrey and I are kind of people. You know what I mean? We like to be around people. And that isolation, dude, we felt like we were in the cell block. You know what
yeah,
I mean? It was rough, and not knowing anybody over there, not being able to go hang out with people, that and you get along with. We did eventually, we met people, but yeah, the isolation alone, Drew, on a missions trip is insane. It's tough. It's real tough.
yeah, man. Well, like I said, that just really resonated with me. Which if you guys want to check out the missionaries that came to speak, their website's called Mayfields to Mexico, Mayfields, Mayfields to Mexico. They have a really cool story, actually. They were saying that they're going to go back to Mexico because that's where they're a young couple, and I cannot remember their names right off, but the husband's wife, her grandparents came to Christ through missionaries that came to, like, it's like this little town in Mexico that's like down in between, like these mountains come down into a valley and it's like tucked in or something. But they had a really cool story, if you want to check them out. But so and like I said, dude, we got so much to try to catch up on. But the last thing I was going to say, church this past week was a banger. It was awesome. The spirit moved. It broke out into prayer thing. They sung that. Oh, dude, what was that song? It's that uh I'm sorry that I just gone through the motions. I'm sorry. Kind of like the coming back to worship song. I can't remember, but it was awesome. And you actually got to go to church for the first
Dude,
time. So I
that
had a banger.
yeah.
You got to go. So I was like, okay, well, I'll bring up how much church was a banger this past week and then give you a chance to talk about it. You know?
Yeah, dude, no, it was great because, I think I said it on the last podcast. It was insane because my wife and I, we were looking at $900 in just luggage, the dogs and all of our totes, everything we own in the world. It was like going to be like $900, and we didn't know how we were going to pull it off, dude. And then out of nowhere, my mom calls me and she's like, "Hey, I just want you to know the church threw in some money to try to help you guys get back here. They want you to get home. They really miss you." And I was like, "What? Are you ser—" And it almost paid for our baggage. We
That's
didn't pay for it all, but I
insane.
mean, still, it made it where we could do it. And when we walked into church on Sunday, man, it was awesome. We had so many people coming up to us and, "Oh, we're so glad you're back. How was Portugal? It must have been terrible. You guys are back." And, just different little pokes here and there. And we actually met a couple people that we've never met before and just really hit it off with them on the way out of church on Sunday. So, yeah, dude, I mean, it was so good to see everybody we know at the church and just to have that brotherhood and that camaraderie and just feel at home. Dude, I got to tell you, yeah, we're living in my wife's grandma's house right now. We'll eventually buy ours when our house sells over there, but dude, one thing I just learned over on the island, if anything else, Drew, is humility. and it was a humbling experience. My wife and I, everything we own, we can fit in 9 totes. You know, I
That's
mean,
insane to think about.
from a 6-acre farm with tractors and everything you can imagine to 9 totes, Home Depot totes. You know, that's our whole life. And it's just, dude, it's been humbling. But yeah, to walk back into church was, and it was a banger too. They did a great sermon. It was one I needed to hear. It was one my sister needed to hear. So yeah, dude, it was amazing.
Man, that's awesome. So shout out to Chris's church family.
Woohoo.
I know you were so looking forward to getting that community again. So and it's important, dude. I mean, it's like I went to actually it just started this week, but I went to it's the ministry's called Real Momentum, which if you guys the hat that I wear every single
Mm.
time is called it's Real Momentum Ministries. Shout out to Keith Boggs, but they started it's a men's Bible study, and that's like my home men's ministry that I go to be fed. But they started a Bible study Tuesday mornings from 6 a.m. to 7:30, which I couldn't stay the whole time, obviously. But that was an adjustment. But went out to that, dude. That was awesome. He was talking about like what it is to be a man and stuff. But one thing he said to me that really registered with me is he's like, your job is like your worship, like how you approach your job is how others see God in you. And he was basically talking about how like you should be such a light at your job that if like essentially that they want to fire you for it because you're just so on fire for God. But if they fire you, you should leave a hole of darkness when you leave because of the
Mm.
light that
You're
that
taking with you.
and I was like, "Whoa, dude, that was so good." But having that community, though, that brotherhood is insane. And that's what you want, and it just insane in a good way. Like it
Yeah,
matters. But
yeah,
so
definitely.
I guess to get rolling into tonight's podcast episode, we got so much to catch up on. But first off, we do have a YouTube channel now, the Unreligious Podcast on YouTube, and then Instagram at the Unreligious Podcast. You find us on Facebook as well. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, you can also send those to us at the Unreligious Podcast at gmail.com. Tonight's topic is our part 3 of anger. Dude, this series has been awesome.
It has.
Episode 1 is anger is how men cry. Episode 2, I believe was called praying for your enemies or something. I can't remember
Yeah,
exactly what I
that
called
was
it,
my
but
challenge. Yeah.
this one's probably going to be hot heaping coals on your which we'll get to later. But so we do want to get to some comments. Now, these are actually technically from my personal page, so I'm going to protect some people's privacy here. But I took it from the podcast and I shared it. Oh, lost my place. But basically, I just shared the post. And I said, how do you deal with anger? Is essentially the question that I asked, and we got some really funny ones. Or I said, how do you handle anger? So I'm just going to use first names. Audrey said, breathe before you react. I believe I read that one on the last one. Jack said, self awareness, understanding your emotions, and being able to stop and remain in control. That's a pretty good one.
Mhm.
Alice says, I clean my house. I don't ever want to say anything I can't take back. So I clean and I don't talk, which I'm like, that's literally like the most productive form of anger. um, I thought this one was interesting because it kind of goes sort of against what the Bible says, but Elizabeth says it's okay to go to bed mad. Sometimes it's necessary. My husband and I have an 8 p.m. rule: no serious conversations, arguments, or questions after 8 p.m. We both have the right to call it something we discuss tomorrow, even uh, if especially if we're angry. Sleeping on it does wonders to clear my head and better communication. So, for some couples that works. Me and my wife used to do that a lot. And then Mike, who we used to work with, he
Hey, Mike.
also is he was also the inspiration behind the and I did clear it with him. I said, "Hey, are you cool if I use your name?" I didn't get a chance to ask you for permission. He said, "Yeah, dude, that's totally fine." So He's the one that actually inspired the, anger is how men cry. That's the one I was talking about. Um, these are all joking ones, but I asked him for a serious one too. But this is just a list of them. Usually pee on something owned by the person of my ire, let it dry, and watch as they wear it with no clue. He said, distract them by pointing at their hair and then yell suddenly, "Oh my gosh, it's on you!" Uh, make the poignant comment. How do you say that? I don't think your mother would act like that. Uh, uh, I definitely would not recommend saying, is it the time of the month?"
Oh, no.
he
No, no,
said,
no.
uh, he said, chuckle and say, "Oh, snort, you're cute." Um, let's see here. Uh, I'm trying to get to okay. So here's the serious. So I basically said, okay, like these are all hilarious, but like, what's your serious? You know, how do you really deal with it? And he said, in all seriousness, stop. Really think about something I learned by experience. How you treat one another will either be the armor that protects your relationship or the poison that eventually kills it. How important is it to you to be right? So, some
Mm.
actual insight thing. Now, it's funny, all I asked was basically just, how do you handle anger? And a lot of people went straight into relationships, which that's probably going to be our next one, but just general comments or reactions to the comments.
The one about, they have a set time, they don't, after 8 o'clock, no serious discussion. Like you said, that's not really biblical because the Bible does say, "Don't let the sun go down on your anger."
Yeah.
I think that's a double edged sword because if you think about it, Drew, yeah, you could if you really are both being stubborn about something, you can carry that all the way into 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning if neither one are willing to give up. You know what I mean? And then it can
Yeah.
get really, really bad because you're getting tired. You want to go to bed. And I've been in this situation where I'm like, I'm done with it. I just want to go to bed, and they won't let you go to bed. They want to keep talking about it. And I think that can be disastrous to a relationship.
I think, like you said, it's double edged sword because the Bible talks about not letting the sun set on your anger. So I think so, and I will say in the past, before me and my wife started going to church, we used to just, if we were mad, we would go stomping off in the opposite direction, go to bed, wake up the next morning and be like, "So you want to go to like first watch or like what's up?" And like we would just try to avoid it. And on the surface, that works. But all you're doing is putting soil over top of those bad roots, and eventually those bad roots are still going to poison the rest of the plant. So my thing is, I think it's one thing to not go to bed angry. If you basically just say, "Look, we're both tired. Let's talk about this tomorrow," whatever, you kind of settled that anger so you can reflect on it. But I think if you do that, you have to circle back around and talk about the issues at hand. That the root of the issue, because what happens is if y'all go to bed mad and then you wake up, you're like, well, it's kind of in the past. I don't want to bring it up because I don't want to argue. And then, or maybe you're both still mad and you're walking around like Sims, not talking to each other and whatever. And so I think you want to come back and rectify whatever issues you're having if you do go to bed. But, I think that there's something to not going to bed angry, though. I mean,
Yeah.
starting your day off on a kind of a sour note. So even if you don't want to stay up and argue all night, at least try to find some resolution and be like, look, we're both tired. I know I'm personally kind of grumpy. Like, let's just table this for now. I love you. Like I try to find some kind of, don't just, storm off and go to bed. I guess that would be kind of my initial reaction.
Which
Obviously, don't urinate on things of your.
no, no, no. But yeah, no,
uh,
it's one of those, Drew, where that leads right into the anger because if you stuff all that and you get up the next day and you don't talk about it and it just gets swept under the rug, and then a week later you get another one and you just stuff all that. Well, what's going to happen? And it's happened with me, and I've talked about this before. It's happened with me with my wife, where I'll stuff and stuff and stuff, and I won't communicate, and then all of a sudden, one little tiny thing will set me off. I'll erupt like a volcano. It should be like, whoa, whoa, where did all that come from? It's because we never resolved it. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, which leads perfectly. It goes in a circle into like we have notes and outlines, but we're just flying by like the seat of our pants most of the time, and
Yep.
somehow we end up landing the plane. But so tonight's episode is on anger. We're going to explore the frustrations and consequences of anger, how it can impact your relationships with God and others. We're going to look at a little bit of scripture, and we're going to look at practical ways to manage anger as well as biblical ways to resolve anger. Um, and just circling back around, anger is a universal emotion, one that we've all experienced. In today's episode, we're going to dive into that and how it affects our lives and relationships and what the Bible says about managing it. So, again, thank you guys for your comments. Uh, so last week, Chris issued an epic challenge, which I took and I applied every single day. There's two people that I prayed for every day. And like I said, I'm not really mad. Like I'm not mad. I don't have any beef or like any issues with anybody, but I tried to flip it and say, okay, well, is there, people that's maybe like trying to make my life difficult, or maybe there's just like a friction, or whatever. And so but yeah, there's two people that I prayed for every day. Dude, I'm gonna tell you, like, the thing that I noticed very quickly, and we both knew, right, that's not necessarily for the other person, it's for you, but, like, dude, it's really hard to be mad at somebody praying for them. Like, I don't know, how many people you prayed for, but, like, dude, I did it every day. I tried to do it in the morning, and if I forgot, I would do it as soon as I remembered. But, like, every time I seen him, I'm like, dude, it's really hard to be, like, mad at him when you're praying for him, because it's like you sort of want to be like, yeah, but it's like you just can't, because you're like praying for their success and you're praying for their peace and joy, and like you're praying for all this stuff, dude. It's like, as crazy as that sounded last week or on last episode, after doing it, I'm like, man, like that really honestly makes me feel better. But it's hard to be mad at somebody when you're praying for them. Did I don't know if I clarified, but Chris's challenge was to pray for those who persecute you, pray for your enemies, pray for if not, just go back and listen to the last episode. But, what did you take away from it?
Dude, I picked one person, and I've had a problem with this person for quite a while now. I won't name names. Um, but it's like anytime I hear this person's name or mention of this person, I get skin crawls, you know what I mean? And I get and I found that the first night I prayed for this person, it was really, really hard for me to pray for them.
Is this, I don't want to give too much away, but is this a person from like a past grudge that or is this somebody you have to
No,
like constantly deal with?
somebody I have
Okay.
to constantly deal with. Yeah, especially
Okay.
now that we're back in the States. So I started praying for this person, and I found it really hard the first couple nights to pray for them. I really did, because I found
You're
that
kind of like,
even
I don't know what to pray for and it be
well,
genuine.
well, no, like I was praying for him, but I know I didn't like really mean what I was praying. Does that make sense?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, how can I pray for this explicitive person, bad word person? Not, but it's like, how can I pray for this person and it actually be? It's kind of like that whole, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Because that was my first thing. I was like, God, like, I just prayed for, insert name here, that they or happy, and it like, I was trying to think, like, I don't even know how, because it's like, it's such a foreign concept, like, I don't even know what to pray, and then but then it's like, as you start doing it more and more, you're like, "Dude, I just pray for their success,
Yeah,
I pray
yeah.
that for their heart," their peace of mind. I pray that they have like the best day. And I'm like sitting here, it was crazy because after like 4 days, I'm like praying for this person. There are these people like more than I even pray for myself. And I'm just like, I just hope that they, get to cheat. It's just, dude, it's bizarre. But anyways, but yeah, so yeah,
So
struggling.
my first couple of nights, I was catching myself. I'm like, Lord, I just, I pray peace over this person, even though they don't really deserve it. Something along that
Mhm.
line. And then it got to where like the third day, I really started feeling it. I started feeling, I really, really want the Lord to touch this person. I really, really want this person to have blessings. No matter what they've done to me, what they've said to me, what they say about me, it doesn't matter because I still want them to have what I have. You know what I mean? The reason these people, certain people are this way, I believe, is because they don't have Christ in their life like they should. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I found it as I went on, it went from trying to convince myself to pray for them to I'm actually praying for them now
Mhm.
to at the end of the week, dude, it was like my heart hurt for them. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I really, really hurt for them, and I'm like, I just wish they could be at peace.
Yeah.
So that's kind
I
of my journey.
Yeah, and I mean, like I never know like who listens to these and don't so like I try my best to be as like vague as I can unless I'm given like specific whatever, but like yeah, so like one of the people personally has like they have issues basically with me and like they're doing whatever they're doing, but it's like I prayed for that person, but then there's another person that honestly doesn't even really know that they're like making my life difficult. It's like, but then also this person that I was praying for, they they have issues with someone else that is close to me who this person's also like trying to do better and live right and live for God and whatever. And so it was weird because like I was praying for this person that makes my life difficult, but then is also has issues with another person I care about. And so I was like even praying that like God can heal their relationship so that, you know, the other buddy can continue on the path, but then be a light, and then maybe I can be a light to the end. It's like, and so I've been talking to this person just about church, like, because I know they go to church, and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, man, so like, but yeah, dude, it's so bizarre because you're just like, you're basically praying for somebody that like essentially hates your guts, and you're like, you you already sort of don't feel like you did anything wrong per se, but it's like you're praying for this person, and you're genuinely like, dude, I hope you have like the best day. I hope you have the best life. I hope that like everything that you want out of life is going to happen for you. I pray for success at your job. I pray for success in your side hustles. Like, I pray that you find peace and that, like, it's just, and I'm just like literally just praying for these people. Like, and then it was just bizarre because I'm like, dude, I'm praying better for these people than I am myself. Like it's insane. But I hope that you guys took the challenge up as well. I know me and Chris did. It was something that I took very serious, and it's something I'm actually going to keep doing. So it's a great challenge. But so the first episode we basically got completely off the rails. We just talked about just anger and what it meant for us. The last episode we kind of identified anger. So today we want to just talk about some practical ways to manage it. So some practical ways, not necessarily, I mean, I guess they are biblical, but we're just going to go into some practicals. Um, but practical ways to manage anger. Number one, pause and reflect. Hey, look, take a moment to take a deep breath. Pray. If you're a Christian, pray, ask God for guidance before you react. But literally just pause and reflect, stop and think. I equate pause and reflect to also, hey, if you have to, pause, walk away and reflect, and then come back. We've talked about clarity when the water's boiling and you're looking down in there, you can't find any clarity because the water's boiling and you're like, you got to let it simmer down, and the water has to like cease to where you could actually reflect on, on all that. Two Bible verses, which me and Chris both pulled them from Proverbs, which is funny. Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And then Chris's was Proverbs 14:29. Whosoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is tempered displays folly. Thoughts on pause and reflect?
I think pause and reflect is probably one of the main, if not the main way to deal with something, because if you don't pause, if you I wrote in my notes, anger, it doesn't take a whole lot for anger to go from anger to rage. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? There's a fine line there. It doesn't take a whole lot to be pushed over that edge and into rage. And if you don't pause and reflect and check yourself, you get into that rage. I think that rage is that part of anger that causes hurt. That rage is what you're going to say things that you don't mean. You're going to do things that you shouldn't do or don't mean. And I think that's all part of rage. So I think if you feel yourself getting angry, Drew, you nailed it. You've got to stop and say, okay, what am I getting angry at here? Yeah, I need to take a step back from this. I need to breathe. I need to pray. I need to do whatever before I go any further with it. I can tell you that I had a situation today. Today, I sent my new phone number out to everybody, right? And I left the same message. Hey, this is my new phone number. And I put the number in. I sent it to everybody I wanted to have my phone number. I had one person come back and completely attack me, dude. Like attack me. I won't go into specifics. I'm 99% sure they don't listen to this podcast, but I don't want to throw that out there just in case they ever do. But this person attacked me. And what was my first? At first, I was shocked. And then I got mad. And I'm like, well, that's what I get for giving you my phone number. That's what I get for wanting to be in contact with you. You know what I mean? I should have just left you off the list. And I started getting mad. And dude, I had to pull myself in and I had to pause and I had to reflect and I had to think, you know what? This person is obviously going through something right now. That's the only reason they would attack me like that. So what I need to do about this person is I need to handle this situation with love. And we were texting back and forth and I literally everything I did was calm, cool, collected, and it was out of love. And the last text I sent, I think, really hit them because I haven't heard back. And now I go into praying for this person. You know what I mean? But it would have been really easy to get mad and get on there and send a text message back, who do you think you are? And just buy into all of that. But I caught myself, dude, and that's what you have to do. You have to get because I can tell you right now, had I responded in a bad way, they would have responded in a worse way, and then I would have come back with something more, and it would have gone to that rage point where we're just saying things to each other that we really don't mean. So that was just my
Well,
example
and
for today.
yeah, and just like that first verse, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And it's like we talked about last week. If you want to kill like 90% of arguments, like especially with your spouse, but just in general, just literally, okay, that's fair. And I've noted, like, I say that a lot now, and I've noticed even people around me saying that, but it's literally like, okay, you know what, that's fair. That's a fair point. I see what you're saying, you know, and then replace but with and. That's something we talked about last week too. Okay, that's fair. And you know what? You're probably right, or just whatever. But like, just deflect. You know, not deflect. What am I trying to say? It's like simmer down,
Diffuse
diffuse.
the situation. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, which that flows into the next one: seek reconciliation, address conflicts directly and humbly. Holding grudges only deepens the divide. Um, Matthew 5:23 through 24. It basically talks about if it says if you bring your gift to the altar, um, remember that your brother has something against you, leave the gift there and be reconciled. Matthew also talks about, I think it's Matthew, I want to say 18. I could be wrong though, but Matthew also talks about like, dude, if somebody sins against you, go to them in private and try to reconcile. If you go to that person in private and you can't reconcile, then bring an elder or two, or a couple saints of God or whatever in, and try to reconcile it that way. If you still can't, then take it public. I've had people that have issues with me essentially in private, and then it's like, I've tried to reach out, I've tried to call them, I've tried to text them, whatever, and then it's like when I talk to them in person, they act like they're fine, but then they go and tell every single other person that they can talk to that they have issues, and it's like, dude, like as a man, come to me as a man and like let's talk about it, like because I genuinely feel like a lot of times if you just straight and to the point and you just sit down and talk, I feel like 9 times out of 10 you can squash quarrels and beef and whatever by just breaking bread and talking to the person, and I think if you just choose to hold on to that grudge in your heart, then you're just adding stress to your life. But on the flip side of that, if you've tried to reach out, you've tried to reconcile, and the person doesn't want that, whatever, I mean, past a certain point, you just have to kind of kick the dust off and pray for them. And like I said, I've had people that have issues with me, and they'll go and talk to everyone else about this issue with me except for me. And it's like, and that hurts, but I've got some Bible verses for that later that I feel like really sums it up. But seeking reconciliation. That's another practical way to try to reconcile anger and just come to a mutual agreement. Thoughts?
No, I think that, seeking reconciliation is very important. I don't think you want either person in an argument or any kind of fight to walk away still holding on to any kind of baggage. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Because then that's just going to come back up again later on. You need to squash it and reconcile your differences right then and there. And just, if you have to, just agree to disagree. You know what I mean? Just agree. Hey, you know what? We're obviously not going to agree on this, so let's just not discuss it anymore, because there's no sense in resenting each other over something that we disagree on. We agree on
exactly.
99% of things. This 1% we don't agree on, but we're not going to let that ruin our relationship.
Yeah, yeah, and the phrase, "Look, we'll agree to disagree," or I don't agree with that, but we can disagree to move on. That'll save a lot of issues too.
I mean,
Um,
definitely. Like, I've got a couple of my kids, dude, that we just absolutely won't talk politics together because we just don't see eye to eye. But we've agreed that we're not going to, just because we're on different sides of that aisle, does not mean that we're not going to have a relationship. You know what I mean? We know we're never going to come to an agreement on it. So we just don't talk about it. We talk about everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have, I definitely have people like that in my life that I cannot talk politics with, and
Oh,
it doesn't. Especially nowadays, man, the media has convinced us all that like we can't agree to disagree anymore. We have to hate each other, and it's
yeah.
just um. So number three, I rearranged those a little bit while we were talking, by the way. Um. So number three is rid yourself of toxic emotions. Colossians 3:8 says, "But now you must rid yourself of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from your lips." I want to say that it was in John when Jesus sent the disciples out. I could be wrong. I didn't look it up. I'm just going off the top of the head, but that was the part where he went to send them out two by two. Me and you've talked about this before. It could be Matthew, but
Yeah.
he sent them out two by two, and then he basically says like, go and preach the gospel, and if they don't want to hear it, kick the dust off, up and roll out. So I definitely think however you can rid yourself from these toxic emotions is good. These are practical ways, but we're throwing Bible verses in, and then we'll get to the biblical ways here in a second. But
Yeah.
uh, thoughts on that? Goose Fraba going out to the wilderness, popping a campfire.
Goose bra. Yeah.
Goose
No,
Fraba.
seriously, sometimes solidarity isn't a bad thing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And if you're
I
feeling
agree.
yourself worked up and you're just irritated with everybody around you all the time and you don't know why, well, chances are it's probably something with you. You know what I mean? If you've got a bunch of people around you irritated with you, it's probably not them. And so
Mm,
maybe at that time, it's time to get a little solidarity and do some self-reflecting and see what's
mm.
going on there.
I If we was in church right now, I would have felt that tighten up right there. That's one of those when the
Good.
preacher starts preaching, you can just feel that little uh, constriction there, or what's it called? What am I trying to say? Uh, a little, yeah, whatever, But yeah, I feel people tightening up out there. Like, well, I don't know why everybody around me's got issues with me.
Right. Right. Yeah, it might be you. You better look
Could be you.
inside and see what's going on, you know what I mean? So, yeah,
Here's your sign.
I think
Yeah.
that, maybe you need to go pitch a tent in the backyard and get a bonfire, even if you don't have to go 10 miles to the campground. Just do it in the backyard and say, I need a night alone, and go out there and reflect and say, what's going on with me that everybody's
Yeah.
irritated?
Eat a Snickers.
Eat a Snickers. That's right.
Biblical ways to resolve anger. Embrace God's peace. I'm just going to run through these real quick, and then we can
Dude,
talk
I don't
about
even know where you're at on the notes. I'm lost, but
them.
I'm winging it here, but go for it.
Page 3, biblical ways to resolve anger. So embrace God's peace. You fill your heart with God's word and replace anger with love and patience. Philippians 4:7 says, the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. You can also pray for peace, which is kind of goes along with praying for your enemies a little bit. Philippians 4:6-7, be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God will surpass all understanding. It will guard your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. Prayer invites God's peace into your heart and helps you process anger. So embrace God's peace, pray for peace. Thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, sometimes solidarity is a good thing. Seriously, if you need to pray, what does he say about praying? Go in your room, close your door, get on your knees and pray to your Father. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's what you got to do. You know what I mean? And you've got to pray. Period. I don't care what anybody says. You got to communicate with our Father. You just have to. If you don't communicate with him, you're not going to feel his presence. And sometimes, and I've told you this before, Drew, there's been times where I've been so beside myself that I have hit my knees on the floor in the middle of the room and just cried out, I need you. I don't understand what's going on. And I usually get an answer, but you have
Yeah.
to take a minute and pray.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally your lifeline, and that's something that really everybody listening to this needs to get better at, myself included. Because that's just it's closeness, man. Like that's how you get close to God, man, is just praying. And I've gotten so much better about it, but I'm still really far away from where I want to be at. Um, Practice self control. Proverbs 29:11. A fool vents all of his feelings, but a wise man holds them back. Proverbs 22:24. Do not make friends with a hot tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered. Responding with patience and control prevents anger from escalating into sin. Practicing self control. I mean, that is one thing. Like, if you, like, I've kind of learned too, like, man, like if you have like if you've reconciled with somebody and then you have beef, then you reconcile, and it's just not never ending cycle, man. Sometimes it's better to just remove yourself from that situation. Love them as a brother, be a good Christian, be the best example that you can. But if it's just a toxic back and forth, sometimes it's best to just like be like, hey man, look, agree to disagree. Forgive others, Ephesians 4:32. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you, which again, that's just like we were talking about last week, man. Like, dude, like, you know, Jesus says, pray for your enemies, pray for those that persecute you. That's so insane to think about, but it's like literally he forgave us and he died for us for everything that we do. And it's like, dude, like when you think about that, like what he went through, it's like, man, it's really not asking that much. Thoughts?
Yeah, literally, if you self-reflect, like I was talking about, a little solidarity, being alone time, and if you really are brave enough, and I mean brave enough, Drew, to dig all the way down in there and think about everything you've done your whole life that's been against the Lord, and know you're still forgiven. How can you not forgive somebody else?
I mean, that's big, dude. Um, and like you said, I mean, he laid the perfect example. For some reason, I put seek reconciliation on there twice. That's it said or I put to reiterate it, but that's obviously another biblical thing in Matthew.
But then again, like you said, you can reconcile, but only so many times. Even
Yeah,
the Bible says you sometimes you got to prune those branches that aren't going to bear any fruit in your life. You know what I mean?
yeah.
You've tried and you've tried and you've tried and you've tried. Like you said, you got to step outside, shake the dust off your feet, and walk on down the road.
I think that there's a difference between getting mad, splitting your differences, or whatever, and there's another between like you reconcile, you make good with it, and then you just kind of like fade away. Like, you know what, man? Like, like we don't have any beef, but it's just best that we keep our distance. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If that person calls and they want you to pray for them, or hey, man, like you can still be a Christian and be a brother, But now this is the last one, and this is the meat of the whole thing, and I like this gave me so much peace when I read this, Chris. Like, so by the way, Vernon's the one that sent me this when we first were. I was trying to remember it on the last episode, and I couldn't remember what Bible verse it was. Um, but this is basically in my opinion, the meat and potatoes. And dude, I'm telling you, when I read this, I was just like, wow, like what do we really have to deal with? But the last one is trust in God's justice. Let go of the need for revenge or control. God sees everything and he will bring justice in his own time. So we're going to look at Romans 12. We're actually going to look at Romans 12 9 through 21. Sorry, I know I'm deleting stuff. It's probably messing you up. But we're going to look at Romans 12 9 through 21. And I'm going to read this. It's a little wordy, but I'm going to read it as efficiently as I can because I feel like it's that important. But let love be without hypocrisy. Abhor what is evil, cling to what is good. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love and honor, giving preference to one another, not lagging in diligent, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfastly in prayer, distributing to the needs of the saints, given to hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Again, bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Be of the same mind towards one another. Do not set your mind on high things, but associate with the humble. Do not be wise in your own opinion. Now, this is where it's like, okay. Repay no one evil for evil. Have regard for the good things in the sight of all men. If it's possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Therefore, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him a drink. For in doing so, you will heap coals of fire
Fire
on
on
his
his
head.
head.
Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So, literally, this is like saying, dude, just kill him with kindness. Like, you pray for your enemy, pray for those that persecute you. You be my child and live for me, and vengeance is mine. Like, God is saying, dude, let me take care of it. You just do you, focus on you, you be loving, kind, and focus on, and let me deal with it in my own time. And it,
Mhm.
dude, when you think about that, you're like, bro, like literally all God wants me to do is love my brothers, pray for those that persecute me. And like, dude, that just takes so much weight off of your shoulders because it's like if you have beef, you have issues, you have whatever it is with people, like, dude, just do the best you can, try to reconcile, do everything that we talked about. But look, if you get to that point where you've reached the impasse, just move on and live your life. Forgive them, love them, pray for them, move on and live your life. And God says, vengeance is mine. I will repay it. And dude, like when I read that, for in doing so you will heap coals of fire on his head. I mean, that's some pretty serious stuff, dude. It's like literally like don't worry, I got you. Like God's literally like, dude, I got you. You just do you. I got it. I mean, that was pretty intense, dude.
That is a big, big pill to swallow. You know it? It really is. And
Well,
I gotta
so how many times do we have issues, but we try to go in and solve them ourselves in the way that we do, you know? Like,
dude,
and I mean, whoo,
I gotta tell you, okay, it's crazy that you read that. When I first met my wife and we were dating, right? That was her favorite verse. I kid you not, Drew. That's crazy
that's
that you read
funny.
that because she used to be like really nice to her ex-husband, right? And I'm like, this is before I was walking my walk. You know, I was on the other path for a while. And I was like, why are you so nice to that? Da 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 da. You know, she's like, because every time he's not nice to me and I'm nice to him, I put heaping coals of fire on his head. I kid you not, dude. My wife said that all the time. Yeah.
Dude, that's funny. But yeah,
Yep.
so, when reading those verses, verses 9 through 10 is basically saying anchor your relationships in genuine love. And then you get to 14 to 16, it's basically saying respond to offense with blessings, not bitterness. Verses 17 through 19 and on is basically trust God's justice rather than seeking your own personal revenge. Conquer anger and hostility with acts of kindness. Because, I mean, dude, like literally, either way, all paths lead to God.
Yep.
Not all paths, however, lead to heaven, right? So
Right.
like, we all are going to have to cross God at some point. Every knee's going to bow, every tongue's going to confess. So
We're going to stand before him at one point.
yeah, like even if you don't get your satisfaction, even here on earth, like God's like, dude, I got it. Let me deal with it. But dude, I mean, that was just powerful, man. Like when I read that, I was like, whoo, and V had given me that verse, but I went back and like kind of read sort of that whole chapter. And when you're leading into it, it's like, oh, hi, pray for those that persecute you, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to put hot coals on their heads. So I was like, whoa, But dude, so like after that, I'm like, bro, like just if you got issues, and I've already have over like the last maybe 6 months, anytime I run into issues, I kind of just kill them with kindness anyways, because I'm like, whatever, dude. Like, but after reading that though, it's like, dude, that puts it into perspective.
Mm.
So, I hope that you guys have gotten something out of this anger series. We're gonna wrap this up. I thought maybe for a minute this was gonna go 4 episodes,
I was wondering. Yeah.
but I looked at it. I was like, no, I think we can do it. But so I hope you guys have got something out of this. Chris, you got any closing thoughts?
No, you know what? I'd just like to tell everybody out there who's listening, if you're following us, you're getting stuff out of this, praise the Lord. You know, that's all we're doing. That's all Drew and I are trying to do is reach people out there who want a place to go to hear the Bible without feeling like they're under some canopy of religion. You know what I mean?
And if you
And
know somebody, like even if you're not the person, if you know somebody that you feel like maybe you want them to have some kind of, encounter with Jesus or whatever, I mean, send them to this podcast.
yeah,
Um,
and then also, um, if y'all don't mind, if any of you took the challenge and you decided to pray for somebody for a week, just shoot us an email. the Unreligious Podcast at gmail.com. Just shoot us an email and let us know how that made you feel. And at some point in time, we'll circle back around if we get enough answers, and we'll go through the answers and how different
Yeah,
people got different perspectives on it.
even if you're listening to this like 3 years from now, it doesn't matter. Like, at any
Yeah.
point, if
Yeah.
you guys, but yeah, we would love to know. And and if you want to remain anonymous, just let us know. Like, I know we name drop on here, but we will keep it vague for the people that maybe, like, if it's just a story or whatever. But, like, the only people that we name drop are people that give us permission. So,
Absolutely.
if you want us to read it and read your name, just tell us your name and where you're from. That's it. Just tell us your name and where you're from. If you want to stay anonymous, just say, "Hey, I would like to stay anonymous, but here's my question,"
Yeah.
and we'll keep
Yeah.
it anonymous. So, no big deal.
Absolutely. And I'd like to give everybody another challenge this week. I challenge you guys to give yourself some self reflection throughout the week. If you find yourself getting angry with a lot of people for dumb reasons, just take some self reflection and tell me what you come up with.
Yeah.
Is it you
So,
or is it them?
yeah, I mean,
Fred,
that's something that I probably, that's something that I feel like I've gotten better at. But, like, I try to do that as well. And, like, I'll even ask, like, my buddies, my friends, like, dude, like, am I in the wrong here? Like, if I'm wrong, tell me. Like, give me your honest opinion.
yeah.
But I'm never wrong. So, it's just
You
kidding.
have to be though, because I'm not.
Yeah. But so any final thoughts?
No, no, I'm just glad to be home, dude. My soul is at peace.
I'm glad that we went from, I was looking at the clock and it was like 20 minutes left, and I'm like, I don't know that we're going to be able to wrap this up, to being able to wrap it up. So
Yeah, yeah,
just some reminders: like, subscribe, share this podcast with someone who may benefit from it. Email the unreligious podcast gmail.com if you have questions. Check out our YouTube, our Instagram, Facebook. And we just want to say thank you guys for listening. Thank you for joining us on this episode. We hope it gave you, some insight, and hopefully inspired you. So, um, I guess I think you prayed last time, so I'll pray and I'll try to
yeah.
keep it quick. That way we can wrap it up. But God, we just pray, or we just want to thank you so much for literally giving us the roadmap to how to navigate these situations. And to be honest with you, if we would just, I mean, shut up and listen to what you have to tell us, our lives would be so much better. And unfortunately, it took me 34 years to figure that out. But I just feel like now more than ever, just by following the roadmap that you gave us, it all makes sense in the long run. And so I pray that we have the courage, the patience, and the understanding to just let you deal with it and to just follow your word, follow your spirit, and we'd be a whole lot better off for it. For those, for the people that's listening to this podcast, if they have anger in their heart, issues in their heart, anything that they're dealing with, God, I pray that you put your hand over them, and I pray that whatever issues that they have in their life, if whatever anger or anything that they're dealing with, that hopefully this will help. And it is in your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen, brother. Amen.
I was about to get fired up. I was about to go on a tear, and I was like, no, no, let's just stop right there. But so no final closing thoughts.
No, I think that just a little peek behind the curtain, y'all, for next week. I think we're gonna try to dive into what does a Christian relationship or marriage look like, and
Yeah,
how do
I
you
think.
know you're walking the right walk?
Yeah, I think relationship. I mean, we might even be able to just throw some friendships in there. But what does a godly relationship? Well, it's February. We'll keep it on the topic of love.
Yeah,
What does a godly relationship look like?
that's
Um,
perfect for Valentine's, isn't it?
yeah, we didn't even mean to do that. That worked out
Wow,
perfect.
how
Yeah.
crazy!
All right. So, all right, man. Well, I'm Drew,
And I'm Chris.
and this is the Unreligious Podcast. Y'all come back now.
You hear?